And now, AM 650 presents your source for leading-edge news and information on today's hottest products and services. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
Well, good evening and welcome to Experts on Call here on AM 650. Joining us in studio from Interprovincial Roof Consultants is the president, Sean Lang. Nice to see you again, Sean.
Good to see you as well.
Tell us a little bit about your company, Interprovincial Roof Consultants. Why consultants? Why not roofing limited? What's the difference?
We're a consulting company that basically guides people through the roofing process and guides roofers through the application process.
So you work for both roofers and those whose roofs are in need of attention?
No, actually, we don't work for roofers.
Okay.
We work with roofers.
All right.
Big difference there.
How?
We work for our clients. Our clients are the owners of the buildings or the managers of the buildings, and they will hire us to look after the roofing application while it's being applied. So we're checking on the roofing installations for them because they don't know anything about roofing. So we're the knowledgeable party that's going to come on board and actually do the overview of the process as it's happening. So the roofing contractor is going to go up and install the roof system, but somebody has to check and make sure that the owner, who's not on site and likely isn't going to go on the roof, is confident that he's getting what he's paying for.
Right. And I think your first truism of the hour, that didn't take long either, talking about someone who doesn't know anything about roofing, because I think, in truth, most people, including yours truly, involved in listening to this program right now, don't know a lot about roofing. We count on pros like you, Sean, to get us through the maze of roofing issues when there's a problem. And, of course, we don't even think about the roof, generally speaking, until there is a problem.
Exactly, yeah. It's out of sight, out of mind until it starts to drip on your piano or something. And then it's a big deal and you need it fixed right away. And that's why we're around, because we're here to help people get through that process. We recognize that they don't pay attention to their roof, and who would, really? You're living in your house and you don't always look up, and a lot of people don't want to go on the roof. It's risky. If it's a sloped roof, it's very risky, and you have to be careful.
You're looking at one of them right here.
Yeah.
I hate roofs and ladders. I just don't agree well with them, and they with me. So that's why I'll basically avoid going up on the roof until I just about have to be dragged up there kicking and screaming. And I don't think I'm too far out of line here. I don't think most people are comfortable crawling around on a roof, especially a sloped roof.
Yeah, it's not a typical thing that somebody wants to do. And the sloped roofs can be risky. And even for myself, if I have to go up a 40-foot ladder right up to the top onto a 12-12 pitch, which is basically a 45-degree angle, and then you got to step on some granules on a roof system or maybe a slippery cedar, your heart's beating in your chest as you're going. And as I get older, it's beating a little more. But I do have the confidence and the knowledge in that I've been doing it for quite a long time. So I know what I'm doing when I go up on that roof, and I'll take all the safety precautions I need to. And that's where a homeowner may not know the risks that are involved in particular, and how slippery is this roof system potentially, right? So they go up onto the roof. They might take that first step off the ladder, down they go.
Right.
Our guys know what they're doing. They've been on a roof. They've worked on a roof. They know the challenges that are ahead of them.
And that includes you, the boss, too, doesn't it?
16 years on a roof. That's right.
So
not the same roof, but many roofs.
Would certainly hope not.
Yeah.
It's now a couple of weeks ago, friends. Sean was a guest with Tony Juventu and I on Key Pacific's Talk About Strata, and you talked a lot about some of the major construction projects you've been involved with and are currently involved with. Is most of the work of Interprovincial Roof Consultants, Sean, done on big projects, or do you do individual homes as well?
We do individual homes, but a very small portion of our work comes from that.
Okay.
We mainly focus on the larger projects, the industrial, commercial, light industrial, and the large strata complexes.
Yeah.
That's where we really get interested because there's more involved in those projects, and the dollar value is obviously much higher. So there's a lot more at stake, and people need to have a consultant involved. It's not really wise to try and manage a project like that if you don't know anything about what's going on, because the crews could pull the wool over your eyes pretty quickly.
Right.
In that there's a lot of roofing going on. There's a lot of challenges on each building if there's multiple buildings that need to be looked over and addressed in a certain way. So we like to write our specifications to tackle all the details that need to be dealt with on a project. And then we like to follow through with inspecting all of that as it's going on.
Now, the reason I was asking you about the bulk of the work being the sort of commercial, the larger contracts, the larger buildings, you know, it's that time of year. However, for individual homeowners, here we are in, you know, late April looking at spring cleaning and other to-do assignments. But, you know, a lot of us have decided with the silly nature of house prices around the Lower Mainland to forget about it. Let's just fix up where we are. We're good with that. We can afford to live here. We've been here a long time. Nobody's going to throw us out. So let's spiff up the old joint. And one of the things we eventually come around to, Sean, is the roof. When was the last time you had a roof inspection? When was the last time you even thought about the roof? From a professional perspective, for that individual homeowner, how frequently should that roof be checked?
At least once a year, preferably twice a year. And it really depends on the surrounding elements on the property. Like if there's a lot of trees around the building and it's a flat roof, and those trees lose a lot of leaves or needles, you want to check on it a couple of times a year, maybe even 3 or 4 times a year. I mean, it doesn't take much to go up and have a walk around, making sure that the drains and overflow drains are all clear. The other things that have to be checked are sealants. Sealants don't last forever, and a lot of people think that the only thing they have to do on their house or on their strata building is clean the gutters and they're done. But in reality, there's a lot of sealants on a lot of detailing on those buildings that need to be checked as well. Because if they fail, that's a point of water ingress.
Right. And what sort of sealant? What would give me an example?
Caulking.
Of caulking.
The common term is caulking, but caulking is actually the action of applying sealant.
Okay.
Right?
And where would the caulking? Would it be the flashing around the chimney, that kind of thing?
Exactly. If there's a brick chimney, for instance, and it has a gum lip style flashing with a bead of sealant that goes around the top edge of the flashing, that quite commonly will separate from the chimney.
Yeah, it dries out in the
sunlight. It dries out,
doesn't it?
exactly. Yeah. And now you've got water, a sheet of water running down that chimney and running past the flashing and potentially hitting an unbonded membrane, right? If the membrane isn't properly 100% bonded onto the brick of that chimney or whatever that chimney happens to be made out of, then the water can run right past the flashing and access that and get into the building. So that's something that needs to be checked. I mean, even just checking on the quality of the roofing components, the metal, is it corroding? The shingles, are they losing their granules and the actual core of the shingle is showing through and not having the UV protection that it needs.
And what about moss on your shingles? I have a little bit on the backside of my roof, and I'm wondering, well, that doesn't look like it's supposed to be there. How serious is it? I don't have a lot, but I'm noticing a few little tufts of moss on some of the shingles. What's that a clue of?
Well, moss is basically, it grows everywhere in BC, as you know, we live in a rainforest.
Yeah.
Right? So moss is best treated in its early stages when you start to see the green algae growth forming on your shingles. It's best to treat it at that point. If it gets to the point where it's actually a thick growth of carpet, I've actually experienced roof systems where when we take off that thick growth of carpet, now the roof leaks where it didn't before.
With the moss, it actually sort of formed a roof layer over the actual roof.
Yeah, the problem though is that when it gets to be that thick, it acts like a sponge. So it now retains moisture on the surface of the roof, whether it's a shingle or an old tar and gravel roof, which is an organic core roof system, wood fibers within the plies of the membrane. So that now holds moisture for a longer period on the roof system rather than letting it dry out as it's supposed to. And that will promote the decay of the roof system. Okay. The other thing that can happen is that the moss acts like a dam, and it actually allows water to pool on the moss in pockets at some points, depending on how it's growing, and can cause water to run sideways into the system on a sloped roof.
Okay.
So
if you've got moss, no matter how much or how little, it's not a good thing.
It's not necessarily a good thing.
Right. So how do you get rid of it? If at my I'm at the early stage. I can identify a little bit here, a little bit there, and I think if I could get up there and spray something, moss killer of some kind, would that be enough, or is there a whole other job I don't know about yet?
Yeah, it really depends on how thick and how extensive the growth is. I mean, if it's minor, you can spray a moss-killing solution on there,
and you can buy that at Home Depot.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Just make sure that it says it's suitable for use on a asphalt shingle roof system or asphalt system, whatever it happens to be. So you spray that on and you kill the moss, and then if it's a very light residue, it might leave on its own or just turn a light brown and you'll never see it again. If it's a thick growth, kill it, let it die, and then go up there and lightly sweep it off with a whisk broom.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to heavily abrade the roof system. You'll take off any granules or any of the surface protection.
Right.
You certainly don't want to pressure wash your roof. Never pressure wash a roof.
Well, I was just about to ask you that, and we have a guest in studio who's actually falling off his chair laughing at this one. Blair, we'll get to you in just a second and find out why. But the pressure washing, you see people doing it not with the shingle roofs. You do. I see it with people with the shake roofs, the wooden shake roofs. But because it looks so nice and fresh when it's all. But I first of all, the people who are up there doing that have my admiration. You wouldn't catch me up there ever. But what harm are they doing to that wooden shake roof?
Well, the thing is that the shingles actually develop, if you want to call it, for lack of a better term, a bit of a patina on them. Okay. So they develop a crust, as it were, that protects the shingle. Yeah. All right. The cedar does. So now you go up there.
And that's just the elements. That's just
natural.
Nature. Right.
It's natural, right? So now you go up there in an effort to clean the roof system and quote unquote rejuvenate it. Yeah. And you're going to strip all that off and actually thin the shingles by doing that. So you have decrease the thickness of those shingles.
Right.
You're also now walking all over this old brittle roof, possibly with cleated shoes. And you're now stepping on and cracking all the shingles if you're a heavier guy, or even if you're a light guy. If then they're really brittle shingles, you can be cracking a whole bunch and leaving a trail of destruction behind you. So
because every crack is an opportunity for water to slide through.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
So what these guys are doing is they're running around and they're making a roof look fantastic.
Yes, they do.
In some cases, sometimes the stain looks horrible in my opinion, but in some cases they actually look great.
Yeah.
But they're not really buying a lot of protection. So I don't know what they're charging the people, but you might be buying a year's worth of protection if they went around and shimmed any of the shingles that they've cracked. Likely they don't.
Right.
So they'll redo all the capping and they'll make the roof look wonderful and everything, but in reality you're spending a lot of money that's only going to buy you a very small amount of time.
Well, again, it's that time of year, Sean, when people are thinking about, got to spiff the joint up. It's, we're getting ready for companies coming in the summer, and we've decided we're not going to sell, we're not going to buy something new, we're not going to downsize, we're going to hang out with the old home and just spiff it up. So you see that roofs eventually come into the focus and get dealt with in some way. And you're saying power washing, not a recommendation.
No, it's never recommended. The best thing for anybody to do that's even considering some kind of an upgrade to the roof system is call a consultant.
Right.
And get an opinion on it. It doesn't hurt to call. I mean, I don't mind talking to people on the phone. And certainly we can get into more in-depth consultations, coming out and actually visiting the roof system. But even just a quick phone call, is this a good idea sort of thing?
Right.
I don't mind giving out that information because in the end, I don't want to see people getting misrepresentations from contractors that are trying to sell them another 20 years or another 10 years by doing this to their roof system. In reality, they're not going to get it.
Okay.
And I've actually been involved in a lot of projects where they call us in after the fact.
I was just going to ask you, have you been called in to sort of mop up after some damage done by these power washing groups?
1 or 2 years later, they're still experiencing a lot of leakage. The shingles that weren't repaired or were stepped on while these guys were walking the roof are falling out or whatever the problem happens to be.
Right.
I mean, none of the flashings have been changed or anything, so they're still corroding. I mean, everything is still deteriorating at the same pace it was before. Actually, it's now accelerated because it's all been stripped. It's all been walked all over. It's been damaged in a sense, right?
So a good bit of advice for the individual homeowner, to say nothing of the building manager or on a larger scale in a strata environment. If the roof has come into focus as something to pay attention to in 2014, don't just, okay, it's the roof's turn, so now we'll get at it. Talk to a pro first. Find out exactly what needs to be done. If you haven't really been up there and had a good look around for a while, and you can tell even from the ground probably needs a little attention, then you probably need the advice of a professional, given that your knowledge of your roof is about the same as mine, which is close to zero.
Yeah, and it's important that people realize that if they just call a contractor, that may be a good way to go, but a lot of times the contractor is going to be digging for work. And they may put together a scope of work to repair the roof system that's way more extensive than it needs to be. So what we'll do is we'll look at, what really needs to be done. We might propose a few issues that could be done as an upgrade, but we'll let you know exactly what needs to be done.
Right.
So you're only spending as much as you need to spend. And we'll always give you the option, if you want to spend more to upgrade this and that on the roof system,
but if
we'll let you know.
Right.
But in reality, you should really be paying attention to what needs to be done in order to save the money.
Well, in that sense, the homeowner or the building manager should think of interprovincial roof consultant, Sean, in the same context as a home inspector. If you're going to buy a $1 million house, you're not going to spend a dime until you get a pro to go in there and go over that thing from stem to stern and give you a real fix on, okay, in addition to the cost of the home, sir, here's what needs to be done. And so the same deal with the roof, right?
Yeah. Yeah, any building. We do a lot of due diligence reports for building owners that are potentially buying, like, let's say, a new warehouse building.
Yeah.
They don't know what's going on with the warehouse building, so we'll go out and we'll walk the whole roof and put together a report for them, and it lets them know what they're buying and whether or not they want to buy that building, because the roof on a warehouse building can cost a lot of money, and it's essentially the biggest part of that whole building, aside from the land. So they need to know what's going on with it, and that's where we come in, because we provide them with that information.
We should probably get our guest involved here, because Blair's been sitting over there in the corner just nodding vigorously and laughing at a few things and smiling. He's dying to get involved in the conversation. So please, Sean, introduce Blair to our listeners.
Blair Bennett is with us today. He's the BC Regional Manager for Suprema Canada, and he is his company is the leading manufacturer of SBS materials in BC and probably Canada and North America. Their product is one of the main products that we specify on a lot of roof systems for multiple reasons, which we'll get into. But I wanted to bring Blair in here today to give his viewpoint on the industry and our cooperative role in the industry.
Blair, welcome.
Thank you.
About time you finally got into this conversation. Good to have you with us. Tell us about Suprema.
Suprema is a worldwide company. We've been around for 100 years, 1908. It was started by family, and it's still owned by that same family.
Canadian company?
It was started out in Europe, in France.
Okay.
So it came to Canada in the early 70s. They were importing product at that time. We now have 4 manufacturing facilities in North America. Our Canadian headquarters are based in Drummondville, Quebec. We have a plant facility that produces material in Chilliwack, so we're a local
almost
producer.
In our own backyard here.
Right in our own backyard, about an hour from here.
All right.
So we provide services, essentially. I have a whole team of guys that work with us and ladies who help in the office, and we support the commercial roofing industry mainly. We will work with design people in the architect level, designing hospitals, schools.
Oh, okay.
Big institutional buildings.
Right, big projects.
So complex materials. We have a lot of products, probably 1,000 liquid sheets, all sorts of things, waterproofing from below grade walls to roofs. So we cover that whole gamut. So obviously there's a lot of technical knowledge that needs to be passed on. Mm-hmm. And an architect's got a lot of things to do, and consultants have a lot of different aspects to deal with, so they can't always know a manufacturer inside and out. So having people that they can rely on, that's what Suprema's done very well in the last 30 years in Canada, is have a team pretty much in every province that can support consultants like Sean, architects, owners, and the commercial roofer.
All right, need to take a quick break here, and after we come back, I want to find out what SBS roofing stuff really is all about, because Sean said, well, he's the biggest SBS provider in Western Canada. That's great. What the heck is SBS? Our guest here on Experts on Call, Sean Lang, president of Interprovincial Roof Consultants, and his pal Blair Bennett, BC Regional Manager for Suprema. On AM 650, lots more still ahead. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Delivering relevant and beneficial consumer information. This is Experts on Call, and there's more still ahead on AM 650.